John Wallace Wild Game Cook here. We're gonna be making some venison breakfast sausage. So we've got our backwoods breakfast sausage seasoning. We've got our 4 pounds of venison because we're gonna try to make a 5-pound mixture here. We're gonna go with about a pound of fat, and this is going to give us a 25 to 30% ratio of fat to the meat. You can go as high as 35, 40% if you'd like. So we may adjust it. We'll see if some of this fat that I get from the local grocery store isn't usable, but we'll weigh it out here on our scale, get about 1.25 pounds or so, 1.5 pounds of fat to our 4 pounds of meat, and add our breakfast seasoning. We're simply just going to chunk this up and get it ready for the grinder. If you don't want to use pork fat, you could use pork shoulder, pork butt, just something with a very high fat ratio or high fat content. I'll add my fat here. Well, first I gotta weigh it, I guess. Let's get it weighed. Make sure we've got our right ratios. Now we've got our package of meat. This is still semi-frozen, which helps the grinder not to be overworked. This same process would work with your brats, with your Italian sausage, as you'll probably see in another video. You simply just get your fat to meat ratio, get your seasoning packet of choice, and mix it all together. All right, gonna get cleaned up and we're gonna grind this meat up. All right, we're ready to grind our breakfast sausage. The difference between making breakfast sausage and making your brats, Italian sausage, Polish sausage, is you grind the entire mixture and you mix your seasoning packet and water in with the meat by hand. If we did that with this breakfast sausage, it would ruin the structural integrity of the grind itself. So what we have in here is our 2 stuffing plates, which are the very, very coarse plates. This is a dual grind adapter, so it is going to grind it twice, but it's going to grind it. We're going to put it in here. Then we're going to mix our seasoning mixture. We're going to change out and put our fine plate back in there, and then we're going to grind it through for the final grind. At that time, we have a couple of options. One, we could take that final grind and we can ultimately put it in casings, sheep casings to be exact, the little smaller ones to make breakfast links. What we prefer to do in our house is either put it as bulk sausage and put it in the wild game bags, or we can pre-make patties and vac seal it in our chamber vac. Those are the 2 options we're going to show you today. Check out my previous sausage making videos on how to make breakfast links. You would just use the smaller sausage stuffing tube and you would use sheep casings rather than hog casings. we've got our venison and our pork fat coarse ground. We're then going to take our breakfast packet and mix it in with our water. If you've seen any of my videos before, I like to not put the full 5 ounces of water in this portion right here because there's going to be a little bit of seasoning and salt left in this little measuring cup. And after I dump it, I'm going to add another ounce of water to capture all the rest of that seasoning. So you can see in there, there's still plenty of salt. Give a quick splash, slurry it around, and get the rest of that out of there. I'm going to go ahead and mix this by hand. Make sure that everything is incorporated really well. It smells delicious. What we do have is we still have some coarse ground meat right here in the auger. So I'm going to take some of this, I'm going to send it back through the auger again to get this out, to get seasoning, and then I'll switch out the plate. I don't see any more liquid, any more seasoning. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this in there and get the rest of this meat out of the auger. All right, I think it's pretty well incorporated. I'm going to unplug the grinder. Anytime you're cleaning it, anytime you're switching out the plates, always make sure it's unplugged. You want to be careful when you're replacing the plates that you do your best to take that outside plate off and to not get any meat around where the new plate will seal up against the cutter. If you get a little bit of gap or too much meat in there, it may not want to shoot out as easily. It's not a big deal, but it's just something to be conscientious of. So as we take this plate off, we'll get the meat off. All right, we've got our fine plate. What we're gonna do, again, just making sure we're unplugged, which we are. I'm just gonna kind of scoot some of this meat back so that we can get a good tight seal on the cutter blades. Another key tip is just making sure that everything is sealed up tightly on your grinder so that it leaves no gaps in between the cutter blades and everything else, and everything forces out and cuts extremely nice. Now we're just going to load everything back up on to our hopper, up onto our tray here. Again, this is the dual grind adapter from LEM, which means it is coarse grinding it and fine grinding it in one pass. It's very, very time saving to be able to grind it twice in one method. Anyone who's ever ground meat through one time and then tried to send it back through, especially when it's not in a frozen state, it can be very difficult and frustrating. So as I mentioned, there's two options here. We can simply grind it all out if we're going to make patties, and we can put them as preformed patties into our chamber vac. You could actually take your ground meat and put it inside your chamber vac bag, smash it out, and vac seal them that way. One thing that I actually do, I'm going to take this back off. I like to use LEM's packaging system. So you get this stainless tube. And it goes straight from the grinder into your wild game bags. So it'll simply just go right into here. What we're going to do is we're going to plug our grinder back in. And turn it on. It's working its way down. Because this meat has been worked with and it's not as frozen, it is going to be a little bit slower of a process. Just take your time. Don't force feed it into your grinder. And right there, some very beautiful high fat content sausage seasoned with LEM's breakfast seasoning. Again, you could take this right out, form it into patties and vac seal it, or we can put it right into our wild game bags as you're about to see here. All right, so we're gonna take our LEM bag, wild game bag, slide it over our tube, and just continue to feed the meat in. You want to put pressure on this collar right here, but not enough to where it doesn't allow the bag to continue to slide outward, as you'll see. If you were lucky enough to have extra help in the kitchen, this is where someone could be helping put all this through the chute a lot quicker, and frees this person up over here just to maintain the bags. All right, so you take this off. Break it down just a little bit there. Give it a good twist. Drop it into the tape dispenser. And there's your venison breakfast sausage in bulk form. All right, so if we want to make patties, we simply turn this back on. Continue to have the meat come out. You can see the high fat content there. It looks just like the breakfast sausage you would buy at the store. Being from Ohio, our preference over here is Bob Evans breakfast sausage. All right. This is all personal preference at this point. You could freeze it in a log and put it inside your vac seal bag. Or again, make your patties and vac seal them. This way you've kept the structural integrity of the grind. Take it back here to our chamber vac. This is removing all of the air from the chamber. Once the timing mechanism is done, it'll seal the bag and remove all of the air from the package. I can't quite articulate how it works, it just works. Kind of deflates, you feel a little underwhelmed, and then all of a sudden after the seal, all the air is gone. Nice tight seal. We've got our 4 patties of breakfast sausage. Of course, you can make larger family size packs depending on the size of your family. Again, bulk sausage, put it in your ground meat bags. This is another way, again, to utilize ground meat rather than just plain ground meat that you're going to use for burgers, for meatloaf. Because it's breakfast sausage or sausage in general, this makes better meatballs. We mix some sausage into our meatloaf. It makes better for spaghetti because it's got more of that Italian, seasoning profile in there. All right, we're going to go ahead and close out and make the rest of this sausage. I hope this inspires you to make breakfast sausage at your own home. Make sure to find all these products on MidwayUSA.com.